They're not just any bank. They are Citi. Learn more at citi.com/weareciti.
The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is,
"Thank you for calling. Please listen to your list of 46 possible service options."
which is why when you choose USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable. 24/7 online service for claims, access to roadside assistance, and more. All at the touch of a button. Start getting the service you deserve. Get a quote today. Ability to receive a quote depends on membership eligibility. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliate, San Antonio, Texas.
Here's your money briefing for Monday, September 11th. I'm J.R. Whalen for the Wall Street Journal. Higher interest rates might make a lot of things we buy more expensive, but they can also help pad your bank account with extra money, even if you're carrying debt and are tight on cash.
Still flex that muscle of putting away as little as you can month over month, because you'd be surprised once you hit zero on your debt how much money is left over to start that emergency savings fund.
We'll talk with WSJ personal finance reporter Owen Adedoyan after the break.
Antonio Romero performs Giuliani's very continuing to expand and build their nuclear program. And that does mean that they're going to play a bigger role, despite the fact that it's a poor country, despite that it has very few friends. It has the potential and the power to play a role in changing the global order in terms of proliferation.
Paradoxically, the Russia-Ukraine war has given a number of, I would say, middle-level countries, but also including even a country like North Korea, the opportunity to say, hey, here you have the great powers arrayed against each other, all this competition. We want to use this to kind of assert our importance regionally and to have more say in the global order. And, you know, we think about countries like Brazil or India, but even a country like North Korea now can be a more important regional player because of this war.
And that's why I say Kim Jong-un also wants to insert himself as a disruptor. I mean, the Koreans have always seen themselves as what they say a shrimp among whales, a tiny country that has always had to fend off these larger neighbors. And North Korea has really embraced this idea that in order to stay relevant, in order to survive, you have to be somewhat of a disruptor. They really embrace that. Unfortunately, we're starting to see how they've managed to use that to their advantage.
That's Jean Lee, a former Pyongyang bureau chief of the Associated Press. She hosts a podcast called The Lazarus Heist about North Korea's cyber theft. And Angela Stent is director of the Center for Eurasian, Russian, and East European Studies at Georgetown University. Thank you both so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It may be time to dig out your vaccination card. Today, the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, signed off on the next generation of COVID-19 vaccines. The agency says the new shots are safe, that they are effective for anyone 6 months and older. NPR Health correspondent Rob Stein is here. Hey, Rob.
Hey, Mary.
Okay, tell me more about these new shots.
So they're updated versions of the Pfizer-BioNTech and Moderna vaccines. They target a more recent Omicron subvariant than the last booster, and the hope is this will be the first of what will now become an annual COVID shot, like the flu shot, to shore up people's immunity as we head into the winter.
Okay, so key question, how well do they work?
They're not an exact match. The strain the new boosters target has been replaced by newer ones, but the latest vaccines look like they're probably close enough of a match to still do a good job. Here's Dr. Ashish Jha, the dean of the Brown School of Public Health, who served as President Biden's COVID coordinator.
The data so far suggests that the new COVID vaccine should be really quite effective against even the new emerging variants that we have seen come up in the last few weeks. So I'm actually quite optimistic this new vaccine is going to be protective.
And cut the chances of spreading the virus, getting COVID, and getting seriously ill.
I mentioned the FDA says anyone aged 6 months or older is eligible for the new shot. Does that mean everyone in that age range should get the new shot?
That's the question the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention will answer tomorrow after a committee of outside advisors specifies who should get another shot. It's pretty clear the agency will recommend a shot for anyone who's at high risk of getting really sick from COVID, older people and those who have other health problems. We'll have to see what the CDC says about younger, healthier people, including kids. Some independent experts say the focus should really be on the high-risk people, since most younger, otherwise healthy people are still pretty well protected against severe disease from previous vaccinations and infections. Here's John Moore. He's an immunologist at Washington Medical College in New York.
Protection against serious disease is already quite strong, so an additional booster doesn't add all that much extra protection against disease. So it's less important for healthier people compared to people in frail health.
And others say everyone who's eligible should get boosted. Here's Dr. Jha.
For younger, healthy people, I say, getting the vaccine will reduce your risk of being out of school or being out of work for a while. It reduces how much you transmit it. There are a lot of good reasons to get your annual COVID shot. I understand that it's been a long pandemic and people want to move on. The best way to move on is just to get your annual COVID shot and know that that's going to provide a good amount of protection.
But Mary Louise, we'll have to see how many people want another shot. Only 17% of those eligible for the last one got one.
Okay, I am going to get another shot. That's my plan. When is it going to be available?
Yeah, the shot should start to become available this week, pretty quickly after the CDC recommendation. For most people, their insurance will pay for it, and some experts say you should get one at least 2 or 3 months after your last shot or infection. Others say it's best to wait a little longer, like 4 to 6 months. You could also wait to time your shot to a couple of weeks before you're going to do something risky, like travel for work or the holidays, but that would mean, risking catching the virus before then. I talked about this with Dr. Robert Walker at the University of California, San Francisco.
To me, some of this gets to be like amateurs trying to time the stock market, which usually goes badly.
And Mary Louise, all the numbers are on the rise again right now.
And PR health correspondent Rob Stein. Thank you, Rob.
You bet, Mary Louise.
Listening to All Things Considered from NPR News.
Just ahead on WVXU, many student loan borrowers have questions about which repayment plan is right for them, but there's often no one to answer those questions. More of the story coming up at 5:40 this afternoon during All Things Considered. 91.7 WVXU and 88.5 WMUP.
WVXU goes wherever you do. Listen to 91.7 online at iHeartRadio.com and on your mobile device through the iHeartRadio app. Support comes from the Cincinnati Bobs presenting Defying Gravity, an evening with Stephen Schwartz and friends, September 22nd through 24th at Music Hall. Grammy and Oscar-winning composer, musical icon Stephen Schwartz joins JMR and the Bobs for performances of his exquisite songs in an unforgettable evening of musical theater. Tickets at CincinnatiBobs.org. Seasons sponsored PNC.
Support comes from Westcott and Schaff Picture Framing. From their shop to your walls, Nathaniel Westcott & Company is focused on offering full-service expertise from the selection process all the way through delivery and installation of your art in your home or office. You can learn more at WSFraming.com. That's WSFraming.com.
This traffic report is supported by Speedway. There's a wreck on the ramp from eastbound 275 to southbound 75. There's a wreck southbound 75 after Mitchell. It's on the right shoulder. In Kentucky, westbound 275 at Turkeyfoot, there's a broken down vehicle. And there's another one southbound 7175 at Butternut Pike. Both of those are on the right shoulder. From 9 first warning weather. Mostly cloudy and 63 tonight. Scattered showers for Tuesday. A high tomorrow of 74. It's 84 degrees now. Thank you for tuning in this afternoon to All Things Considered on 91.7 WVXU and 88.5 WMUP.
Support for NPR comes from the station and from Bank of America, offering access to resources and digital tools designed to help local to global companies make moves for their businesses. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/bankingforbusiness. From Procter & Gamble, maker of Align Probiotic, a daily supplement designed by gastroenterologists to help relieve occasional bloating, gas, and abdominal discomfort. More at AlignProbiotics.com. And from listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
This is All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Mary Louise Kelly.
And I'm Elsa Jane. Recent mandates for state prisoners in D.C., Ohio, and Pennsylvania all raise the question of how easy it is to disappear into the sea of humanity, and what are the tools available to officials who have to find these people. Well, back in 2015, Brett Dixon helped in search for 2 inmates who escaped a corrections facility in the state of New York. He's now an agent for the New York State Police. Welcome.
Thank you.
So can you start us off, Major Davison, by telling us briefly about this manhunt back in 2015? I remember it transfixed the country. The prisoners escaped through a tunnel in the Clinton Correctional Facility. It took something like 20 days to locate them. What did your agency learn from that manhunt that you think investigators in Pennsylvania can take away from it?
Well, certainly the cooperation from all the responding agencies played a big part in us apprehending inmates Richard Bennett and David Sweat back in 2015. Obviously, if the inmates get out into the rural environment, as we dealt with up here in New York State, it can be We use canines and special
initial response teams to search for them, and it was still very difficult in tracking their location.
Can you talk more about that? Like, what kind of coordination happens once an escape is reported? What agencies get involved once an official manhunt is activated? Can you tell us about the protocol?
Yes, it becomes an all-hands-on-deck approach. Pretty much all federal, state, and local agencies respond to the area. A leads desk is set up, and it becomes a massive search operation involving pretty much any of those agencies that you can think of that are federal, state, and local.
All hands on deck. Well, in the manhunt in Pennsylvania, where they're looking for a convicted murderer, the search, I know it's been hindered by heat sometimes. Weather is just one obstacle. What other obstacles tend to get in the way of a search of this scale? Can you talk about that?
Yes, some obstacles that we dealt with up in our area were just the rural area that the inmates escaped into. We had no cell phone coverage in most of the area. Even our radios, police radios, worked in a spotty manner. You know, very rural, acres and acres of woods with no houses. The inmates were able to access seasonal camps and hide out in there for days. They got access to weapons, drugs, alcohol, clothing, which assisted them in prolonging their escape.
When an escape happens, where the fugitive has been convicted of a violent crime, obviously there's a lot of concern for the public's safety. What is your advice for how people in the local community should think about news of escapes like this? How should they be behaving? How should they assess the risk to themselves?
Yes, obviously that was probably our biggest concern, was the safety of the public during our manhunt. We always want the community to be very vigilant. Maybe if they don't normally lock their doors, to keep their doors locked and report any suspicious sightings, sounds, or activity that they're not used to seeing to the police immediately. Probably not do a lot of traveling on their own if possible. And, you know, just remain vigilant.
Yeah. Brent Davison is Troop B Commander for the New York State Police. Thank you so much for giving us your time today.
You're welcome.
Inside a courtroom here in Washington, D.C.
For any unpredictable scenarios, because all the work you do.
After many hours in the operating room, surgeons breathed a sigh of relief. Augusto and Pedro were successfully separated. They spent many months in the hospital recovering, but are now back in Guatemala, healing and laughing. The boys still have a long road ahead, but they've paved the way for future patients and surgeons, and for the blood and tissue banks like Solvita. It says this is the first time the top part of a skull has been recovered and used in large amounts. Adding this experience will help others who need reconstruction of the head, jaw, and face. Watch a video of Augusto and Pedro's story at WVXU.org. Ann Thompson, 91.7 WVXU.
Support comes from Dayton Performing Arts Alliance and its season opening celebration, Prince Orlovsky's Grand Masquerade, as Dayton Opera, Ballet, and Philharmonic unite to bring Act 2 of Johann Strauss II's Die Fledermaus to life. Performances September 16th and 17th. Information and tickets at DaytonPerformingArts.org/tickets. Support comes from I1 Unique Eyewear, a local independent optical shop with classic styles in tortoise to distinctive shapes in a kaleidoscope of colors, celebrating over 20 years on Hyde Park Square. Also in Dayton at the shops of Oakwood. I-1.com. I1 Unique Eyewear. Discover great art.
Support comes from Norwood Together and its second International Art Show celebrating Welcoming America Week. The event showcases the creative work of international and local artists, live music, children's area market, international food trucks, and cider. Saturday, September 16th, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Presenting sponsor, Hamilton County. To learn more, visit norwoodtogether.org.
This traffic report is supported by Speedway. Westbound 74 closed between East Miami River Road and 275. Northbound 71, there's a wreck at Stewart's.
Is All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Mary Louise Kelly.
And I'm Elsa Chang. Over the past decade, Nicaragua has become one of the most authoritarian countries in the Western Hemisphere. And for more than a year now, the country has also kept foreign journalists out. But NPR's Ada Peralta managed to get in, and he's on the line with us now to share a bit of his exclusive on-the-ground reporting. Hey, Ada.
Hey, Elsa.
So tell us a little bit about what you saw and heard there.
So what I really wanted to do was get a sense of everyday life. And what I found is that on the surface, everything points to normal. Shops are open, they're stocked, people go about their daily lives. But once you dig just a little bit, you find that this is a country that lives in fear. And everyone is afraid of the ghosts of what this government has done. And this government has thrown a Catholic bishop in jail, they've thrown revolutionary heroes in jail, they've exiled Nicaragua's greatest poets and writers, and they've shut down a historic newspaper. And in 2018, they also opened fire on protesters. And all of this has just created this unshakable sense of uncertainty. And what people in the country told me is that they're constantly thinking, if the government can do this to the untouchables, imagine what they can do to me.
Well, how freely were you able to move around and report?
We were able to move around freely. We were not able to report freely. I had to keep a low profile. I had to be careful with the people I interviewed, and I couldn't just show up to a market to ask questions. So I had to find creative ways of getting some truth. I went to a comedy club, for example. And, you know, I'll tell you, this guy got on stage. He looked nervous. It was his first time on stage. His hands were a little shaky. And he asks, "How's everybody doing?" And the crowd, of course, says, "Great!" And what he's saying is, "You frickin' liars, no one lives great in Nicaragua." And the audience is sort of stunned. There's awkward laughs, and then the comedian backs down. He says, okay, I'll stop. This is dangerous. I want to get back home safely. It was a joke, but not a joke. And what it tells you is that Nicaragua has become a place where even comedians have to watch their words.
Yeah, wow, that's fascinating. Well, Ada, I know that you were born in Nicaragua. When was the last time you were there, and what was it like being back?
So the last time I was there was 10 years ago, and there were murmurs that President Ortega was building an authoritarian state, but I still talked politics with poets and writers in cafes out in the open. I felt free, but this time it was different. All the poets and writers I spoke to the last time have left. They're among the 600,000 Nicaraguans who have left the country in the past few years. And, you know, I went to a couple of government celebrations, and I also traveled a lot of the country, and the feeling that I got is that the government is in complete control of Nicaragua. And this is a country that is also polarized. The vice president, for example, calls her foes snakes and treacherous vipers. They play songs that taunt the protesters. And the exiles, the opposition that has been banished, they don't want anything to do with the government. I talked to Felix Maradiaga, for example, and he's the most prominent opposition leader outside Nicaragua. He's exiled in Miami. And I asked him if there was any chance of a political solution with Daniel Ortega, and this is what he told me.
It's impossible. Daniel Ortega only understands the language of violence.
The president of Nicaragua, he says, only understands the language of violence.
That is NPR's Ada Peralta, who is reporting from Managua, Nicaragua. Thank you so much, Ada.
Thank you, Elsa.
And you can catch more of Ada's reporting from Nicaragua on NPR's Upburst podcast.
There are some public health messages that most people seem to have absorbed, things like buckle your seatbelt or brush your teeth twice a day. But it takes time for messages like those to sink in.
When I was young, we used to bake in the sun with baby oil, and now none of us, even little children, when think about going out in the sun without some type of sunscreen.
That is Barbara Kelly, Executive Director of the Hearing Loss Association of America. Her question, why don't we think about protecting our ears in the same way? Life Kid's Margaret Serino has more.
Noise-induced hearing loss happens when you have constant, repeated exposure to sounds that are at a dangerous level. And it's on the rise for all age groups.
A recent study found that 1 billion young people are at risk for noise-induced hearing loss.
That's people between the ages of 12 and 34. This kind of hearing loss is irreversible, but also often preventable. And it might not happen how you expect.
So we have tiny hair cells that respond to different frequencies, and over time those hair cells become damaged.
Meaning they don't transmit sounds to your brain as well. That's Dr. Ariel and Naeem. She's a senior audiologist at Audio Help Hearing Center. She says that since it's about your brain as much as it's about your ears, noise-induced hearing loss can take a few different forms. Like, if you can't hear your conversation with someone over lots of other people talking in the background, or if you can hear someone talking but you can't understand the words they're saying. Another common symptom is tinnitus, which is ringing, buzzing, or hissing in the ears. Both Kelly and Dr. Naeem say if you have any of these symptoms, first get a hearing test to establish your baseline level of hearing. You should be doing that even if you don't have symptoms. You can ask your physician if they can refer you to an ENT doctor or make an appointment with an audiologist. But also, make sure you protect the hearing you already have.
The rule of thumb is that when you're listening to a sound at what's considered 85 decibels, you are safe.
Until you hit the 8-hour mark, that is, according to the American Speech Language Hearing Association.
But when you increase that sound by 5 decibels, you have to cut the time in half.
City traffic can be around 85 decibels, but an approaching subway train is 100 decibels, and hearing loss is possible after only 15 minutes of that noise. So if you're gonna be somewhere loud, like a concert, wear earplugs, and make sure you're watching your phone volume as well. There's no official guidance on how loud is too loud, but this is what Dr. Naeem told me.
As long as you play your music or podcast, audiobook, anything like that, at 60% of the volume bar or less, you would be safe.
Lastly, be careful about cleaning your ears, because it turns out you don't actually have to.
Our ears naturally produce oils that help keep it healthy and moist. And when you stick a Q-tip in there, you're actually stripping those oils that are naturally produced, and then that could lead to dry and itchy ears.
With these tips, you're well on your way to building a solid ear care regimen. We tend not to think about our ears in the same way we think about protecting our skin or brushing our teeth, but ears deserve some love and attention too.
Hearing health is a part of overall health. It's about staying connected. It's about interacting with people, and it's about better hearing, better thinking, better engagement.
For NPR News, I'm Margaret Serino.
And for more life hacks and tips, you can go to npr.org/lifekit. You're listening to All Things Considered.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from 20th Century Studios, presenting A Haunting in Venice. From the world of Agatha Christie comes a supernatural thriller, rated PG-13, only at theaters Friday. From Data IQ, a platform for everyday AI, dedicated to helping teams move beyond the lab to build generative AI applications at enterprise scale. DATAIKU.com. From Fisher Investments team of specialists tailor portfolios to each client's long-term goals. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investments in securities involve the risk of loss. And from ECMC Foundation at ecmcfoundation.org.
Support comes from the UC Office of Research presenting DFGO 2.0, an open house celebration of UC Digital Futures, open to the public September 22nd from noon to 3, featuring cutting-edge tech demos, food trucks, live music, and the United States of Artificial Intelligence, a panel discussing the perils and promise of AI. More at ucdigitalfutures.com. Support comes from the Cincinnati Children's Kaleidoscope, featuring Broadway, film, and television actress Kristen Chenoweth. Tickets are available now for a special benefit performance on October 7th at the Aronoff Center for the Arts. All proceeds from this event will support expanded mental health services for children in our community. Tickets available at cincinnatichildrens.org/concert.
Westbound 74 is closed because of a wreck between East Miami River Road and 275. Northbound 71 at Stewart, there's a wreck blocking the left lane.
91.7 WVXU Cincinnati and 88.5 WMUV Oxford. News from Cincinnati Public Radio and NPR.
They died with grandmother and 2 girls. And the one girl, she's pregnant. and she died.
Aid is trickling into Morocco, but the earthquake death toll keeps rising.
We'll report from one mountain town turned to rubble this Monday, September 11th, on All Things Considered.
I'm Mary Louise Kelly.
And I'm Elsa Chang. Ahead this hour, China wants its citizens to spend money.
But since COVID, people's spending habits have changed.
I really feel that the economy is not as strong as before. People is not confident anymore.
How China's economy looks through the eyes of a restaurant owner in Beijing.
And on this 22nd anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, thousands of people are still sick from exposure to the disaster site.
We did not have a plan to send people out the door rapidly to conduct immediate sampling of the potential exposures.
Now news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Jack Spear. Bells tolled at Ground Zero today, and there were solemn tributes across the country as Americans marked the 22nd anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks. Four hijacked flights that ended in carnage at the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and a rural farm field in Pennsylvania, and the lives of nearly 3,000 people. President Biden, returning from the G20 summit in India, marked the anniversary with service members and their families in Alaska.
Shanksville, Pennsylvania, the Pentagon of Virginia. I spent many 9/11s, those hallowed grounds, to bear witness and remember those we lost. Every day, but especially the last few days, their memory has been with me.
Vice President Kamala Harris joined the ceremony at the World Trade Center today. First Lady Jill Biden took part in the ceremony at the Pentagon. The Kremlin is confirming President Vladimir Putin will host North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Russia's Far East this week. As NPR's Michelle Calvin explains, the U.S. government says Putin is begging for weapons.
The U.S. sees the visit by North Korea's Kim Jong-un as a sign that Russia is having trouble sustaining its military effort in Ukraine. State Department spokesman Matthew Miller says Putin launched the war with the dream of restoring the Russian Empire, and he's failing.
Now, a year and a half later, not only has he failed to achieve his goals on the battlefield, but you see him traveling across his own country, hat in hand, to beg Kim Jong-un for military assistance.
Miller says that any transfer of weapons from North Korea to Russia would violate multiple UN Security Council resolutions. He says the U.S. will be watching closely. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, the State Department.
Hi, sweetie. I just got home a little bit ago. I was wondering, do you happen to have